How you doing today? Pretty good? Hope so. I got a question for you. Have you ever felt overwhelmed? I mean, really overwhelmed or even just a little overwhelmed? Because I really haven't. And I don't know what it's like to be overwhelmed. Um, Maybe that's because I've had challenges out through my life that I've had to cope with, deal with, especially since my accident. So I don't really know what it's like to be overwhelmed. And maybe by the time I get done telling you why I don't get overwhelmed, uh, maybe that'll help you if you happen to be somebody that gets overwhelmed with anything. And I've never been in that position, so I just don't even know how to even, uh, you know, understand really what it's like to be overwhelmed and not know uh, what to do next or how to deal with something or anything like that because I just have never been in that position. So um, I kind of look at everything as, you know, it's just gonna be possibly a challenge to do something, but it nevertheless it'll be something that I'll just do. Um, and I don't know if that has to do with the way I was raised or what, but for me, I just have never been overwhelmed on anything. Um, if there's something that I can't do, I just don't do it. I mean, it's just that simple. To me, it's that simple. But if it's something that I, am gonna try to do, or you know, if I was working and there was something that I had to do at work or at home or wherever or whatever was going on, I just did it, and I just took each step and each thing as it comes up. Just I just did, and it's hard to describe that, but it's just something that I've always done. If you're climbing a ladder, for an example, maybe I can explain it this way. Um, if you climb a ladder and it's got 12 runs on it, or if you got a staircase in your house, do you take one step and get to the top? Or, you can take one step and end up at the bottom, let's be fair. You just fall. However, do you really though? Or do you take one step at a time? Once in a while you can skip steps, let's be honest. But in reality, do you take one step at a time to get to the top of the ladder or to the top of the staircase? You take one step at a time, right? Same thing if you're going into the kitchen or going out to your car or wherever you happen to be going. You usually take one step at a time and you get to where you're going. And I guess I've always just looked at it in that same aspect. Whatever's going on in my life, no matter how difficult or how big of a challenge it is or whatever I have to do, if it's something that I can do. And that comes into a whole nother deal, right? If you can't do something, if you physically can't do it or mentally can't do it, then you just, for me at least, I just don't do it. It's just that simple. I'm very aware of my abilities to do whatever it is that I'm looking at doing. And if I can't do something, you know what? I may try to do it, but let's be real here. There are certain things that people can't do, right? That you may not be able to do for one reason or another. But back to being overwhelmed, I just don't understand it because I've never been in that position, because no matter what I was doing out through my entire life, I've always looked at it as, hey, I got to take one step at a time and eventually you'll get there. If you put up, let's say you're really, really busy, right? You work a lot and you have a lot going on. You have a family, kids to take care of, and you're taking care of the house and chores around the house and whatever else you may be doing, and you just have so much to do, but you got to build this one project, right? You're building a doghouse, or you're building a room, or finishing a room in the house, or you're building a shelf, or a cabinet, or whatever the case may be. You know, you can be quote unquote, right, overwhelmed and be, well, how am I going to do this? Or you can have the attitude and the thought process, and this is where the way that I look at it anyways, is if you're building a cabinet or a shelving unit, right? Maybe you don't have all the time in the world. You don't have that time to actually do this, right? But you do have 5 minutes. You do have 3 minutes. You do have 2 minutes. It might not be all in a row. It might be today, tomorrow, the next week, or the month after that, or whatever. But if you take and you make one cut on a board, and that's all you have time for that day, the next day you might be able to make 2 cuts. Or you might be able to stain one thing, or do one step, right? You're drilling holes, and you got time to drill holes into one of the boards, and you got 6 boards or 6 shelves to do that on. That's where, just realizing that that's all you have time for, then that's all you have time for. You just go out in the garage and you drill a couple of holes, and that's all you have time for, because now you got to take the kids to a soccer game, or you got to, you're going out to eat with your spouse, or you're going to game night, or whatever the case may be, right? But in the end, the next day you've already drilled a few holes. Now you're going to drill a few more holes. And eventually you're going to have all the holes drilled. Eventually you're going to be able to put all the screws in, even if you can only put a couple of shelves together one day, or 2 days, or 3 days. And, over time, that shelving unit's going to be built, and you're going to just have that 3 minutes here, 2 minutes here, or a minute here, quick. I got to quick run out in the garage and do this part or that part and stuff. And then, eventually, even though it's going to take a little bit of time, there's going to be a day when you go out there and you're going to be doing the last coat of lacquer or stain or whatever you're going to do with it to finish it up. And you're going to have a finished product. And, the whole time you've only taken 1 minute a day to do it. But that was that 1 minute that you had, and that's all you had to do it. And I guess that's where I apply to all of my tasks and any kind of thing that I deal with, regardless of what it is, if it's a mental thing or if it's a physical thing. I just take that one step at a time. I don't look at the end product. I don't look at that end part of all of that. So that's where I don't get overwhelmed. Not even knowing what that means in the first place, and not even really being able to understand it, because I've never been in that position, because I've always looked at life the same way, and that is, you're just going to take one step at a time. I'm not worrying about the end result. I'm worrying about my next step, and that next step is that easy step, right? Because that's all you're doing, is that one little step, and that's where life can get complicated, is if you don't do that. So if you are somebody that gets overwhelmed, and, you look at things and you're just, I don't know what's next, or what should I do next? Don't look at it as this huge project, whatever it is. Don't look at it like that. Don't look at it as a huge task. Look at it as a small task. What are you going to do today? What are you going to do this minute? What are you going to do in the next 5 minutes to accomplish the whole thing? Not just, doing it all at once. Focus on just that little bit, that little task, that one step. Because you're not going to get to the top of the ladder by jumping to the top of the ladder. You're going to get it by climbing the ladder one step at a time. So the next time you feel quote unquote overwhelmed, whatever that is to you, take a breath, sit back, and say, what can I do this second? Because that's what you need to do. And then once that part's done, if that's all you have time for, or if that's all you can do, then tomorrow you can do the next step. You can do that little bit more that you need to do, and eventually you'll get there, even though it's going to take you time. But if you freeze and you don't move, it'll never get done. And then you're going to be a month down the road, and that's going to be, the end of whatever, because it's never going to get finished, right? You're never going to accomplish what you want to accomplish. So I got faith in you. You can do it. So the next time you feel overwhelmed, whatever that is, just one step at a time. Don't worry about the whole picture. Worry about that one little step, because then it's not going to seem that big of a deal. And don't even think about the rest of it. At least not yet. Worry about the rest of it later. Worry about that one little step, because you can do it. So until next time.